Well, happy Cinco de Mayo to you all. I hope everyone has been having themselves a good Cinco de Mayo thus far. I know I have. I do know one man that has not been having himself a good Cinco de Mayo here. As I'm sure you're all aware by now, if you've been browsing Twitter, if you've been browsing online in general, or if you've checked out some of my earlier videos, you will know that Mr. Coach Red Pill himself, Mr. Gonzalo Lira, he got arrested by the Ukrainians. He's being charged with basically being a Russian propagandist, and it's looking like he might spend the next 5 to 8 years in a prison cell for being a pro-Putin shill in the middle of a fucking war. So I figured that, since Coachy, he ain't gonna be on the internet for a while there. I'd figure we take a journey on one of his last videos. This video is simply entitled, "The Russians Are Winning Too Slowly." Now, I don't know about you, but I am very interested in learning how the Russians are winning, but just too slowly, when this special military operation was supposed to wrap up 3 days last year. Because that's what they said. That's all the Russians needed to denazify Ukraine. Just 3 days and the special military operation will be over. And here we are 1 year later. And that special military operation didn't end. Yeah, it did not end for them. It might be ending soon, but just not in the way that they wanted, naturally. But, they're winning, according to Coach Red Pill, who's now, as we speak, sitting in a fucking jail cell, scared out of his mind. Can't tell if he's going to be actually going to prison, or is he going to face a fucking firing squad, or hell, they might just even make him dig his own grave to save the ammo. But I figure we go over his one of his last videos, why the Russians are winning slowly, and maybe Coach can open my eyes and expose the truth on why the Russians are really winning and not the other way around, and not losing. Okay.
Hey, how's it going? So, I've been I follow YouTube and Twitter and stuff, and of course I follow the news to see what's going on, and what's...
And by news, you mean the pro-Putin Telegram channels you're in there. Because it's not just, the YouTubes and the Twitters and the internet as a whole he's browsing up. He's also browsing Telegram, and in particular, again, pro-Putin Telegram channels. That's what he's browsing.
Interesting is to follow Twitter because you kind of get the pulse of the different sides, if you will. And on the...
Yes, because I trust Twitter for my fucking news. Everyone trusts Twitter for news. Okay.
Kiev side, whether it be of people in Ukraine or for the most part people outside of Ukraine, mostly in Europe, Western Europe, and the United States, and Canada, of course.
There's also Russians who are supporting Ukraine. The thing is, though, they just don't want to make it public. Otherwise, the FSB, which is the equivalent of the CIA, will come knocking on their door and drag them off to jail in the middle of the night. Similar to how the Russians used to do things under old Papa Joe.
There's the dawning realization that the Kiev regime is just running out of gas. It's going to lose.
Really? Very interesting that, today, actually beforehand, The Ukrainian military had received some nice NATO tanks. Got some M1 Abrams from the good old US of A. Got some Challenger tanks from the Brits. And even got some Leopard tanks from Germany, which is going to be the main tank of the Ukrainian military there. A very fine piece of hardware that the Germans had produced. And what are the Russians fielding again? A couple of T-90s, T-80s, a couple of tanks from the Soviet era. They're starting to roll out T-60s and T-55s. They're also buying ammunition. They're also buying tank rounds from Iran and North Korea there. But no, seriously though, the little Kievan regime is totally gonna fucking collapse soon. Trust the mentally ill homeless man here.
They're kind of like realizing that all this talk of like not enough weapons, and they're seeing enough of the forced conscriptions that are going on here in Ukraine, and all kinds of.
And you don't think the Russians are doing the same thing too? The Russians literally denied the Wagner Group, the private military that's been besieging Bakhmut for months. They literally denied the Wagner Group access to new recruits from prisons because the regular Russian military has plans to start up its own penal battalions in the 21st century there. Oh, and also we now have a digital draft in Russia there, which in the past, draft officers had to track down where you were living. They would have to knock on your door, and they would have to tell you, hey, buddy, guess what? You get to get drafted into the army. And normally people who wanted to dodge the draft would have to fucking hide. But now, you could just as easily send that shit via the email. So, there's that. There was the draft that took place last year. And as a result of that, a lot of military-aged men started fleeing for the fucking borders, I should know, because two Russian YouTubers I watch, managed to escape the fucking draft there. And now they're in Georgia, the neighboring nation to Russia, and are now protesting the war. So, yeah. But no, seriously though. Seriously, though, it's only fucking Kiev. It's only the Kievan regime that's issuing up the fucking draft there, and totally not the Russians as well. Anyway, continuing.
Different data points that are getting too numerous to be ignored. The pro-Kiev side is seeing that the Russians are winning. The Kiev regime is losing.
If the Russians were winning, why are they taking their sweet time taking Bakhmut? Okay, Bakhmut has become this war's Stalingrad, okay? Hell, the Battle of Bakhmut has been going on longer than the Battle of Stalingrad. And earlier today, a fucking video from the leader of the Wagner mercenary group, Prigozhin, okay, he uploaded a video basically begging the higher-ups in the Kremlin, begging for ammunition, and stating that if they don't get any ammunition, they're gonna fucking withdraw on May 10th. That's 5 days away. If the fucking Wagner group doesn't get what they want, they're just gonna pack up their shit and go home. But no, seriously though, guys. 1 year into this 3-day special military operation, and the Russians are totally winning.
They're reconciling themselves to that fact.
By the way, the little video that I just mentioned from the Wagner leader there, it's been plastered all over the internet. I'm sure if you've seen it, I'm sure you might have seen it already, but if not, I will be leaving a link to that in the description below, so you can all check it out. And yes, there are subtitles for that video.
But at the same time, they're all of a sudden starting about Poland getting into this war. Poland.
They've been saying that Poland's going to be getting involved in the war since the fucking thing began. The closest Poland got into getting into this fucking war was when a fucking missile, which they thought was fired by the Russians, landed on Polish soil and killing one farmer. But it actually turns out it was a Ukrainian missile that got blown up there in orbit. So, yeah, that's the fucking closest the Polish have gotten involved into this war.
Some information that I've been getting from Western Ukraine is that there is a concerted effort to have people feel that Western Ukraine and Poland are conjoined.
What?
So this notion of Poland going in, it's being, it's a seed that is being sown on multiple levels by multiple different organisms. Western media, the Polish leadership class, but there's a lot of propaganda among different people to have Poland be part of a, quote, coalition of the willing. It wouldn't be NATO. It would just be Poland. But
Poland is a member of NATO. The only way they would be able to go into Ukraine without the aid of NATO is if they break away from the NATO treaty. That's the only way the fucking Poles are going to be able to do that. And, if they really wanted to, they would have done it already. They would have fucking done it already, but they haven't.
Armed by NATO. Since the start of this conflict, Russia has been losing catastrophically. Hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers dying every.
They have. They absolutely have. They have been getting decimated. Day by day, month by month. Again, this was supposed to be a 3-day special military operation in which the Russian army would just steamroll through Ukraine, capture the capital of Kiev, depose Zelensky, set up their own puppet government, and then come home as heroes. And here we are 1 year fucking later, and the Ukrainians are about to engage in a counteroffensive, which, given the fucking state of the Russian military, the fact that no one really wants to fight on the Russian side, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the fucking Ukrainians start laying siege to Crimea by the end of the year there. But no, seriously, no, guys, seriously. Seriously, the Russians are totally winning, guys. The Russians are totally winning. It's totally not like one of the fucking main arms of the fucking Russian military, fucking Prigozhin's little Wagner group. It's totally not like he threw a tard fit earlier. Yeah, the Russians are totally winning, guys. Trust me.
Hey, and I can smirk, right? And now, 14 months in, the Russians...
14 months into the special military operation, the 3-day special military operation,
seem to be getting very, very close to what they originally said was their objective.
The objective of the Russian military for the, again, 3-day special military operation was to destroy the Ukrainian military, denazify Ukraine, take Kiev and depose Zelensky and set up their own puppet government, and protect the breakaway regions in the Donbass area there. That was their fucking objectives for the special military operation, and they have not achieved any of them, really, except maybe defending, the whole Donbass and those other little breakaway regions there. But other than that, everything else they just failed to do.
Demilitarization. And demilitarization.
Yeah, and how's that fucking going? How's that fucking going there, champ? Again, Ukraine has just gotten some nice, sweet tanks from NATO. Some M1 Abrams, some Challenger tanks, and some Leopards. Oh, plus all the fancy high-tech gear we've already been shipping them up until now. They're, how's the demilitarizing process going for the Ruskies there, buddy?
Of course, in this context means the absolute annihilation of the Kiev regime forces. They are on their third army, as Douglas McGregor has counted, because there was the army that started in February of 22, then the second army that they built up over the summer and into the fall that was broken in these catastrophic offensives in Kharkov and Kherson, and now this third army that...
Where is the evidence that this so-called second army that you speak of broke in the fall? Where is the fucking evidence? Where's the fucking evidence? I would have heard something by now. If that was the fucking case. We all would have. We all would have heard something about the Russians breaking. The Ukrainians breaking Kherson there. I remember hearing how school children in Russia are having to make fucking trench candles in schools for the soldiers because they can't use electricity, otherwise the fucking Ukrainians will be able to spot them and they can easily call in an artillery strike in the middle of the night. But the Ukrainians totally got buck broken at Kherson there.
Is basically conscripts and territorial defense forces with a small nucleus of hardcore Kiev regime nationalists that are basically disciplinary units at this point. I mean, according to Douglas McGregor, who is an experienced military officer who has seen combat up close and personal, and who would know what he's talking about, this is the third...
Something tells me this guy in question is full of shit. Maybe it's just me.
Army that the Russians are destroying. And the Kiev regime is getting to the end of its tether. They're freaking out. And so now...
Again, there is literally a video from Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner group, begging the Russians to supply him arms, to supply him ammunition. He is literally threatening to pull out of the siege of Bakhmut on May 10th if his forces don't get any more ammunition. And remember, okay, again, this is a special military operation. This isn't a full-scale war. They're not sending all of their fucking troops. They're just sending conscripts and private mercenary groups like Wagner into the fucking quagmire there. So if fucking Wagner pulls out of the war, Lord only knows what's going to happen to the rest of the fucking Russian military there in Ukraine. But no, seriously though, guys, the Russians are definitely winning. They're definitely winning.
It's all turning towards the notion of bringing Poland in. Now, the issue becomes, will Polish entry into this conflict widen the war into NATO?
Yes. Yes, it will. Because if Poland were to enter Ukraine, still a part of NATO, and Polish troops were to be killed by the Russians, then that could be used as a justifiable reason to invoke Article 5 of the NATO treaty, in which an attack on one is an attack on all. So yes, that would drag NATO into this fucking war. Because again, since Poland is a part of NATO, an attack on one is an attack on all.
I think a lot of European.
I would figure that as someone who is as big-brained as you would be able to know that. I'm a fucking idiot. Okay, I'm a fucking idiot. My idea is entertainment is pointing and laughing at mentally unhinged people. Okay, my idea of entertainment is pointing and laughing at special needs people. People that have mental issues. Okay, I don't read the shit that I'm fucking spewing right now, okay? I'm going off of it based on fucking YouTube videos by people who know a lot more than me. And I am able to fucking disprove Gonzo here's theories on why the Russians are totally winning the war. Hell, you can go on fucking Twitter right now. You can go on fucking TikTok right now. And you can watch videos in real time of Ukrainian forces just mopping the floor with the Ruskies. You don't need to go to CNN. You don't need to go to ABC. You don't need to go to your fucking local news station. You can go to fucking TikTok and watch live videos of Ukrainians just mopping the floor with the Ruskies live in real time. But again, guys, seriously though, the Russians are totally winning.
And people and their governments are going to completely freak out over that notion. The Germans are going to throw a hissy fit, and the French too, because the fact that Poland is going up head-to-head against Russia in Ukraine, well, you got to understand.
Okay. Of course the fucking French and the Germans would get upset over Poland attacking Russia in defense of Ukraine, because they're still a part of NATO. And if that would have happened, then Poland would have gone rogue. And again, if Polish troops die while they're attacking the Russians, it'll easily be justifiable to issue Article 5, and then the whole entirety of NATO has to get involved in this war that Poland decided to drag them all in. Of course they'd be pissed.
And see, if that happens, as far as the Russians are concerned, those are not a brother people. Those are fucking Poles. And they're going to go to town on them. Because you got to keep in mind in this conflict so far, the Russians, with a few key exceptions, have not broken out their best gear. Their best tanks, their best missiles.
The T-14. Well, the T-14 cannot go up against modern-day tanks. I mean, for fuck's sakes, the T-14, it's this just super battle tank that the Russians are just gonna roll out. And that's the tank that's gonna be able to crush NATO like a fly. You know they based the fucking T-14 tank around an engine that they copied off of the Nazis? And that Nazi engine in question was for a prototype Tiger tank that was known for being an unreliable engine. They fucking based that fucking shit. They fucking based the T-14, this modern super tank, off of a shitty engine the Nazis created many, many years ago. There's a video going over the T-14 and why it's an absolute shitty, god-awful tank. If you want to know more, link to that video is going to be in the description below as well. Anyway, continuing.
They flew a few Kinjals over there in March of 22, and another few Kinjals here and there over the year, and then another big strike in just outside of Kiev that killed off, as is now being confirmed, 400 NATO advisors and private.
Oh, I'm sorry, NATO advisors are being killed now? Why the fuck haven't I heard this anywhere else except you? Why am I just now coming across this fucking news that so-called NATO advisors are being killed by the Russians? You would figure if NATO advisors were being killed, we would have heard something about that by now. They'd be plastered all over the goddamn place. How come I'm just hearing about it now from some crazy homeless man?
Military contractors. And by the way, the NATO officers apparently that were killed were all retired.
Okay, so if they're retired, why didn't you say initially retired NATO officers? Why did you say NATO officers? Because when you say NATO officers, or NATO advisors, or what have you, that means they're still active. That means they're still a part of the organization. That means they're still a part of fucking NATO. Now you're saying they're retired. Now you're saying they're no longer with the organization. Why couldn't you say that before? Why couldn't you say that before?
So that way, it's not officially NATO. It's the exact same play that they did with the divers that, according to Seymour Hersh, the Americans used to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. They used retired divers or divers who were no longer active duty. So they...
Okay, so in Coach Red Pill's head, the United States hired a bunch of retired divers to plant explosives around the Nord Stream pipeline. The pipeline, the undersea pipeline, which transported Russian oil all the way into Germany and to a larger extent most of Europe. They recruited retired divers just to dive on in, plant explosives, and then blow up the fucking pipeline? Why couldn't they use already active divers? Why couldn't they just get some fucking divers from the Navy? Why couldn't they just get in some fucking Navy SEALs or some shit? Why did it have to be fucking divers? Hell, why couldn't they just use a drone? Why couldn't they just use a drone and shit? Why does it have to be retired divers?
Could get around the the requirement, the constitutional requirement in the United States for Congress to be advised of any military action by the White House.
Trust me, brother. Trust me. As an American, I know that the White House has authorized military operations and shit like that without the need of checking in with Congress for years. They've been doing it for fucking decades. They've done it before, they'll do it again, buddy. This ain't the first time they've had to fucking tiptoe past Congress to get some shit done military-wise.
And so anyway, that strike has been confirmed. These little Kinjal strikes, in March, again this March, and over the year here and there, it's happened a few times on some key targets that the Russians had, but they haven't gone to town on Ukraine. They haven't leveled it, and they can.
Really, you can actually go to fucking Google right now and type in fucking Bakhmut, the city that Wagner is about to pull out of. The place looks fucking destroyed. That looks like something you'd see in a goddamn video game or a fucking movie. But no, this is real life. It's completely fucking ruined. That is no longer a fucking city in Ukraine. It looks like some fucking random set piece in an apocalypse movie. That's fucking Bakhmut today, but no. The Russians are totally not leveling fucking Ukraine to the ground. Even though Bakhmut looks like a literal destroyed city you'd see in a fucking Fallout game.
Whenever they want to, they've been going out of their way to minimize civilian casualties. The casualties...
Really? Really? Where's your evidence on this? Where's your evidence on this? Because there's definitely a lot of evidence out there stating that the Russians have been committing a whole lot of war crimes since this war began and have definitely been killing off civilians. Hell, we don't even know how many civilians might have died in the still occupied territories that are under their control there. But no, seriously, they've been going out of their way to prevent civilian casualties. Even though the Russians have been well documented committing some war crimes and killing civilians.
According to the United Nations, the civilian casualties are less than 10,000. Now, that's a horrifying number. But compared to the...
That we know of. Because there's still territory that the Russians have control over, which something tells me that when the Ukrainian forces liberate the remaining area that is currently occupied by the Russians, we're going to find out that there's indeed more civilian casualties. And that number, that's up to 10,000 right now, that was published by the UN. That number's going to get higher there.
Losses of both army groups, of the Russians and the Kiev regime, those combined in terms of killed in action, well, Kiev has lost over 200,000 men, for crying out loud. And the BBC, its best estimate is the Russians have not lost more than 20,000 men. So...
Sure, yeah, let's go with that. Yeah, it's definitely the BBC that's saying, oh, the Russians only lost 20,000 troops. It's totally not like the fucking Russian propaganda you're getting spoon-fed on the daily there, buddy. Oh, no, it was definitely the fucking BBC that told you this. It was definitely the BBC that has stated that the Russians have lost over 10,000 of their goddamn troops during the course of the year-long 3-day special military operation, yeah. Okay.
10,000 civilian killed is a horrifying number, but compared to 220,000 killed on both sides, it's 5%, less than 5%. But insofar as going to war with Poland, the Russians are not going to have such scruples. They're going to go to town. The Poles, rather, they are setting themselves up to be the next proxy army against Russia.
Well, can you really blame them? People know what it's like to have the fucking Russians literally on your doorstep and invade you without a moment's notice. They have fucking experience with that shit, and they know what it's like having to live under the fucking boot of Russia there. So I really can't say I blame the Poles for wanting to potentially take up arms against the Russians.
And the Russians, they don't care about the Poles. Because remember, the Russians in Ukraine, they are defending ethnic Russians. They are people.
Oh, they're ethnically Russians. We have to save our people. We have to save our fucking people. And you know what? While we're on that subject, why are we giving that Hitler guy so much shit? Let him invade Austria. Let him take over Austria. They are technically Germans. Oh, what's that? Oh, Hitler wants the Sudetenland because they're all Germans. Yeah, okay. Let's let him do that. Let's have Hitler have the Sudetenland. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, what's that? Oh, now he wants the rest of Czechoslovakia. Well, they're all German. They're just protecting their own people. They're just protecting their own people. Oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? He wants to invade. He wants to invade Poland. He wants to take Danzig because Danzig is Deutsch. Danzig is Deutsch. Oh, well, let's let him do that. I mean, they're protecting their own people. They're protecting their own people. So what if that means the Germans get to invade a sovereign nation? Who cares? He's protecting his own people.
The Poles aren't their people. But that seems to be the general direction of travel. And I just wanted to do this quick video to update you that, insofar as the sentiment is concerned, the propaganda, the astroturfed support for Polish incursion into this war, it is growing. And so I think that the odds, I mean, you can't really put odds on something like this, but, I would say odds, even though I shouldn't, but I'd say it's 60-40 that the Poles do get involved in this conflict. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go with 80-20. I'm going to go with 20-80 that the Poles get involved in this war.
It'll be a catastrophe for them. A complete catastrophe. Will that damage to Poland bring in the rest of NATO? That's the real question.
Again, Poland is part of the NATO alliance. If Polish troops start dying in Ukraine by the Russians, then that will be a justifiable cause to invoke Article 5. And again, Article 5 states that an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all NATO members.
Understand what's going on.
I do understand what's going on, and that is Russia is getting its ass kicked by fucking Ukraine, and you're now rotting away in a prison cell, and you can get fucked. You delusional old man. When I first started watching Coach Red Pill videos back in 2018, I remember with him with the slick hair, clean shaven, always wore a nice suit. His apartment was nice, wasn't dirty at all, had so many cameras spread out all over the place. All he would have to do was just clap his hands, and different cameras would beam on him. That was the old Coach I know, and now I look at him and holy shit. Holy shit, my dude. The years have not been too fucking kind to you. The years have not been kind to you at all. Now look at you. Now look at you. Now you're going to be rotting away in a Ukrainian prison for the next 5 to 8 years of your life. Just because you wanted to be a Putin fanboy. Just because you wanted to spread propaganda about how your new home, Ukraine, is run by a Jewish Nazi. And how Putin is the supreme, glorious leader that everyone just needs to bow down to. And how the Russians are totally winning, even though this has been going on for a year and this was supposed to end in 3 days. How the someone mighty have fallen. Anyway, as I said, video to the Wagner leader throwing his little hissy fit, and a video on why the T-14 is such a god-awful tank is going to be in the description below. And Slava Ukraini.